Hello YouTube, doing things a lot differently today, as you guys could tell by the title of the video. More on that in a second, but basically things are different. One, because this isn't a fish I keep myself, I have in the past, but at the moment, and it's been for a while, I don't actually keep this fish. I would, I have nothing against this fish other than the things I'm going to discuss in today's video. It is by far the most misinformed and the most underappreciated fish in the entire hobby, and I'm going to get into why that is, and ways you can change that. And of course, I'm talking about the betta fish. So today's video is going to be all about Betta splendens, as it's known scientifically, also known as the Siamese fighting fish, and sort of. So first off, I'm going to talk about kind of how it came to be that this fish was miskept or miscared for, abused in the hobby. I'm going to talk about kind of how that came to be, and then I'm going to talk about why the conditions you see them in, why they're so wrong, like what's wrong with them specifically, and the third part I'm going to talk about the ideal setup. What does it require to keep these fish for their long, full lifespans? So basically, thank you guys for tuning in. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get started on the betta fish. So basically, I'm pretty sure everyone knows what a betta fish or a Siamese fighting fish is. Basically, these fish have been around for probably centuries. I almost said decades. Centuries. This is an old Asian tradition of keeping these fish. They used to have fighting rings, like they have with pit bulls and chicken fighting rings. They used to do this on a smaller scale with the betta fish, and breed them for their territoriality and aggressiveness, which is why unfortunately you see so many betta fish today really cannot even see another betta fish, and more so with the males. The females have been known to be able to keep them in sororities. If you keep a large number of them in a large tank like this, like a 55, and you keep maybe like 6, 7, 8 of them plus, you might have some luck. But especially the males, you can't even put them in eyesight of another betta fish, and they will go berserk. And part of that is because of they were bred for this aggressive personality and their fighting ability to literally kill betta fish. They're not just territorial, like you see in some cichlids. They literally just want to kill other betta fish, which is very unfortunate for the species. But anyways, so part of this came to be, it started out as a long time ago as an Asian tradition of keeping this fish, and pet stores nowadays are also guilty of this. Basically, what they're trying to make it seem is that this fish is super accessible and something that every household in the world can have as a pet and care for. They make it seem so easy and accessible for anybody, that unfortunately that's how we get to see the conditions that they're kept in today. I'm talking about betta bulls, or these little, I wouldn't even call them bulls. They're that small. They're like that big, maybe smaller, maybe a little bigger. It doesn't matter. There is not an animal on the planet that can live in a bowl of water. There's no fish you're gonna find that is gonna live a happy life in a bowl of water. And I'm gonna get into why is that. But basically, the pet stores, they shouldn't even sell these bowls. They know it's not right, but it's gotten to the point where it's more about profit than it is about fish, which is sad. But by making this fish seem like anybody, any household in the world can keep it, they're maximizing profits. They're selling, no matter how many even if half of them die in those cups they advertise them in on the shelves, even if half of them die in those, at least they're still making money based on how much they're selling, based on how easy they make it seem. Um, and so these pet stores are guilty of, telling people that it's not only that they don't need a lot of space, they tell them that they don't want a lot of space because, they like to be by themselves. And wording it like that is just really twisting it a lot. Obviously, they don't live in bowls in the wild. They live in something a lot larger than a 55-gallon or even my 120-gallon. They live in entire bodies of water. We're talking swamps, marshes, densely vegetated bodies of water. So for obvious reasons, the bowls don't work. It's not, the fish aren't happy no matter what the fish looks like. And unfortunately, these people, they'll bring it home misinformed. They think they're doing something right. They have guests over, they see it, and it gets to the point where it's almost a decoration that you have to feed. That's literally all it is. When something's that, when your betta fish bowl is that small, and you put the pretty little decorations in there, and you just put it on a shelf, it can fit on your counter, your bureau, the top of the fridge, etc., your office desk. When you make something that easy, it becomes a decoration. It's not a living thing. It's not a pet anymore. It's a decoration you have to feed, and that's the biggest problem. Is people have guests over, they see that, they see it, they're like, oh, this is so adorable. Or a kid sees his mom, can we get one? And she's like, oh, it looks easy. And it's just a never-ending cycle. They're passing down the information the pet store told them to their guests, and it's just a never-ending cycle. And it got to the point where we're at today, where everybody is keeping these fish in a little bowl. And now that brings me to my point of what is so wrong with these bowls. And number one, obviously, is space. This is a fish that not only gets a lot bigger than people expect, but lives a lot longer. And in the description, I'm going to bring a link to a site where it says, it breaks down the lifespan of a betta fish, which, if kept right, there's reports of it living 6, 7, 8 years. There's even reports longer than that, but that might be a fluke. The average you should expect is at least 5 to 6 years. That is a safe estimate. That's not even a bold estimate. And unfortunately, when you don't keep them in the right conditions, and they only live 2 to 4 years, a lot of sites are starting to say that as their lifespan is 2 to 4 years. And unfortunately, if you keep them in a bowl, if they live 2 to 4 years, you got very lucky, because unfortunately most of them only live a few months, but the pet stores keep them so cheap that you're not even heartbroken for a second, and you don't even think about why it died or what you did wrong. You're like, I can just buy another one. You're sad for about 2 seconds, and then you move on, buy another one without fixing the problem that killed the first one. So the first thing is the size of the tank. These are fish that when you buy them from the pet store, you don't expect them to get bigger, because they don't obviously tell you they get bigger. But betta fish can definitely get 3 inches plus. And unfortunately, the ones at the pet store, if you put them in a bowl, they're not going to grow. They say their max size is like about 2, 2.5. When these fish can definitely at least get another inch, because of the fact that you're cutting their lifespan so short. You're also cutting their potential to grow short, because they don't have the space to grow, and it will either stunt their growth or kill them before they're done growing. And so either way, these fish have a much higher potential in terms of lifespan and size. And they're definitely very beautiful when you get them to their full potential. It's a big difference in lifespan from 2 to 4 to 5, 6, 7 years of a betta fish's life. That's a big difference. Obviously, that big difference is due to proper care or the lack of it. The next problem with betta fish bowls is the lack of heat. Now, I don't know how this problem came about. Is it just due to the betta fish's general hardiness? But a quick Google search, which I implore anybody to do before you get any pet, either whether it's an elephant, a dog, or a betta fish, you gotta research, you gotta know what you're doing. These fish, they come from Southeast Asia, and any of you who keep tropical fish tanks know the gouramis. Well, the betta fish is a gourami. It is a close, maybe second cousin to the gourami, if you want to put it in human terms. It is a close relative of the gourami, comes from the same exact part of the world, lives in the same exact condition water, except when you buy a gourami, you can't even consider buying one if you don't have a heated tropical tank. But when it comes to the betta fish, almost the same exact fish care-wise, people often forget the fact that they're tropical because you see them in those cups. People have no idea. I'd say 3/4 of people who keep betta fish are so misinformed that they had no idea even where it comes from, let alone that that's a tropical region of the world with tropical temperatures, anywhere from 76, 79, 80, anywhere in that range, upper 70s, like I keep my tropical fish tanks. And so on. It's really unfortunate, the heat, the lack of it really does damage to their immune systems and their health. Short term it's okay. Yeah, that's why you see them, they can last 2 to 4 years in a bowl. But, obviously if they're supposed to live twice that length, then it just shows how much the lack of heat and the lack of size of the tank really puts a dampen on their immune system and their overall long-term health. The third part of this is filtration. Those little bowls, they don't offer any sort of a way to filter the water, or even have some sort of filter on there. When people keep them in the small betta bowls, they say, oh, the water looks clean, I'm good for a while. Well, yeah, my tanks, with the glare it's hard to tell, but I'm looking at my tanks right now and they look crystal clear. Granted, I did just do a water change, but it looked the same before I did the water change anyways. And that's because the things that cause the problems, the things that are so toxic and the reason we need to clean our water, are things that are microscopic. I can't see them. It has no effect on water quality. These are ammonia, nitrates, nitrites, phosphates, things like that are really toxic in high amounts to these fish. I can't even see them. I could go without water changes for 4 months, and I could look at my tank. I'm like, oh, it still looks crystal clear. And that's really not a good way of thinking, because you don't understand. The biggest problems are not things you're going to see. It's just things that are in the water that harm your fish, and this is just natural buildup of these things from stuff like uneaten food and fish waste, which is an inevitable thing. All fish is going to, all fish food that's uneaten is going to break down, and all fish waste is going to break down into these toxic substances that are very bad for your fish's health. And having filtration, does have the job for me, along with doing my water change schedule to get whatever the filter can. And I'm not going to get into the whole nitrogen cycle. It's a complicated process, but all you got to know if you're a basic betta fish keeper is that you need filtration to do that job for you, because these are stuff you can't see and you can't expect to be on top of, because it's just stuff that is completely invisible to the naked eye. It's on microscopic molecular levels, and it really, the filter does that job for you, because you physically can't. So basically, that's the third aspect of the problem with betta bowls, is the lack of filtration, circulating that water, taking out the things that are toxic to the fish, along with our water changes. And now the last part of this video, here is the ideal betta fish setup. This is, what after everything we just talked about and discussed, this is what you need, and this is the bare minimum. This is, in my opinion, the bare minimum, and this isn't a lot. This is something, I still believe any household can keep, as long as you have running electricity. That is really the only extra piece. It's really no more work after that. It's just a little bit of electricity as well, and it's not an extreme amount. It's like running any old appliance, and so the bare minimum for this fish, for the betta fish, is a 5-gallon tank. That is the first bullet point. Size: 5-gallon tank. It is the perfect size for long-term care of a betta fish. And with that size, you can even keep them with small tank mates, like Cory catfish. But tank mates is a whole nother conversation. I just want to focus bare minimum for a betta fish. In that size does give the possibility of small tank mates, but that is a completely different subject. More importantly, focus on the betta fish first, then worry about providing great lives to other fish as well. And so 5 gallons. So basically, this looks pretty bulky, but that's because it's a cylinder. It's circular. This is a 5-gallon bucket. And it might look bulky, but this on a countertop, or a desk, or your bedroom bureau, like, this is not too big of a tank. That is something, it's maybe a little over a foot long, and so that's the bare minimum to keep these fish their entire lives, see them grow to their full potential. 5-gallon tank. Tropical fish heater. Now, I already talked about why you need heat. This fish comes from an area of the world with tropical temperatures, and it is going to keep them happy for their entire lifespan. Tropical temps, you don't even need an adjustable heater. Just the cheapest one. It can be preset to a tropical temperature. There's a million out there. They're on Amazon, and with that heater, the last thing you need, really, for equipment wise, is a filter. Just the cheapest bare minimum filter, and the filter does have to work for you, or 90% of it. You just have to change the water every so often, to get rid of the stuff that the filter can't. But the filter does so much for you. And so that's why I'm saying this is no more work than keeping them in a bowl. It's just you need a little bit of electricity, and that's all. It doesn't add any more work. You can feed them the same amount, and you're still cleaning the water every once in a while. So that's all the bare minimum equipment-wise. The only last things you need is these fish can be a little shy at times, and so they do like to have some sort of plants. Fake plants are really cheap at the pet store, and some sort of little cave thing to hide inside. So a few fake plants, some caves. They don't even need gravel if you don't even want to do that. Spend the extra $5 on gravel. But just a few fake plants, just to keep them secure, and you'll really see the benefits with the beautiful colors and the potential size of this fish. And so with that, that's all for the the betta fish video. Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe. My channel's got a lot of content on the way with all of my beautiful tanks, but this video is specifically for betta fish, just to inform all the misinformed people out there on this really misunderstood fish. And I hope you guys have a better understanding on how to keep this fish in the future, so it can live a long, happy life as it should, as we have the responsibility to do as pet owners. So thank you for watching. Please stay tuned, more videos.